Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining and welcome back to Wall Street Silver. Joining us today is our good friend Rafi Farber from the Endgame Investor. Rafi, always great to see you.
Hey, Ivan. I'm doing well. Hope you're doing well. Jim, too. It's good to be back.
Well, hey,
Always.
Rafi, I just had to mention you gave us some good news. You had a lawsuit, or no, you had criminal charges filed against you for something in Israel, and all the charges were dismissed recently. Do you want to give us an update on that crazy situation?
Yeah, well, very quickly in a minute. If you go to my YouTube channel, you'll see the whole story. Basically, I was put into a trap when the Green Pass in Israel was getting popular, and I was told that I couldn't go drop my daughter off at kindergarten. I basically said, I'm going to come anyway. I'm going to go inside and I'm going to drop her off, and there's nothing you can do about it. So they stationed this like COVID guard at the entrance to the kindergarten to try to prevent any parent without a Green Pass from going in. And I just kind of walked past her, and then she accused me of assault. And they didn't accuse me of breaking the Corona rules because those don't really exist. They're just, you know. She accused me of assault, and then I got booked by the police. And then an article came out about me, not by name, but people knew who it was me, especially in my neighborhood. They knew it was me. It came out about me about how I was just going crazy in the kindergarten, screaming and making all the kids cry and yelling Nazi slurs at the kids and just basically acting like a drunk asshole. But she didn't know that I had my phone in my pocket recording the entire event from the beginning to end.
Smart.
Yeah.
So the police,
now I'm suing her for libel and the newspaper.
So the police filed charges, but then I guess a prosecutor saw the video that you had and said, "All right, well, I'm not going to prosecute this one." And,
yeah, basically that's what happened. Yeah.
And now you've got a lawsuit going. I guess they don't. It's probably the libel laws are much easier to sue in Israel compared to the United States. Is that a fair statement?
I have no idea. I have nothing to do with the law.
I guess you're going to find out, right?
I'm a Rothbardian anarchist. I'm just, I'm just suing them for libel, and we'll see what happens in small claims. I don't care about the money. I just want a precedent so that when they try this again, they know that they will lose and they won't try it again.
Yeah.
I just want to protect other parents.
I get you. Good idea. So on to other issues. I saw a video you did on Chris Marcus's channel a few weeks ago, where you made the comment you think we're in the final innings of the fiat scheme. I agree with you. It's whether it's early, middle, or late stages, I think is probably the question that's up for debate. Why do you think we're in the final innings? What's leading you to believe that?
There are a lot of reasons. I guess the simplest one is that if you look at a chart of the federal funds rate from like say 1985, there's a clear downtrend line. Every time the Fed from the Volcker era really raised interest rates after 1980, it caused a recession, and then so they cut rates, and then they slowly raise them again as inflation gets worse, and then they cut them again, and it creates a diagonal line down. Because as Austrian business cycle theory states, it's not that you need low interest rates to sustain a boom. You need consistently falling interest rates. Really, you need a consistently growing money supply, because as more debt builds on more debt, you need more debt to service the debt. So it's just logic. It just makes logical sense. So when the effective federal funds rate hits that trend line, a recession happens, or what we call a recession, or a financial crisis, or some kind of debt toppling event happens, and they have to print again. So we're already at that line. We're at the trend line. This is not going to be the first time since 1980 that the trend line is hit and nothing happens and everything's fine. They've never achieved a soft landing ever, because it's impossible. So they're not going to do it now. It's just whether it's a question of now, 2 months from now. I think it's months. I don't think it's even a year.
After the 75 basis points they just raised last week, what are we at right now in the Fed funds rate?
That's a very interesting question, because I go a bit deeper into the weeds here that people might not be used to. But the effective federal funds rate, what we call the federal funds rate, it doesn't really matter, because only about 70 to 80 billion dollars of that stuff trades every day. But it's a benchmark for other interest rates. the biggest one is really the SOFR, the secure overnight financing rate. And if you look into the central bank news a little bit and you know a little bit about this stuff, this is the rate that, unlike the effective federal funds rate, which is one bank borrowing from another bank and charging interest on that money, this is banks getting cash in exchange for treasuries. It's a swap of treasuries for cash, and that's about $1 trillion a day being traded. And that rate is actually below target. The target for the federal funds rate is 1.5 to 1.75, and I think it's at 1.58 or 1.68 or something like that, within the target ranges of the Fed. But the SOFR, which is much more important and much less reported on, is actually out of range. Right? The lower bound is 1.5%. All these interest rates are overnight, so they're supposed to be in the same ranges. But the SOFR is 5 points below. And why is it 5 points below? Because there's so much money that's just outside the banking system that just comes in whenever money is lent, that they can't drain the sewers. So the rates just keep getting pushed lower and lower. And eventually, I don't really know what's going to happen. I can guess, like, on the long end, they're going to go up. On the overnight end, they're going to go, close to zero or something. Maybe if what happens with the reverse repos of $2.2 trillion are stuck there and they keep coming in when money gets loaned out. So I don't know, could the yield curve get ripped in two or something? I don't even know what that means or what the implications are. It's all just so weird, but everything is totally out of whack. And it's just underneath the surface, and it's just a matter of time before it bubbles up into something that people can see.
Well, if we're already at 1.5 on their official headline Fed funds rate, so if they raise it another 75 basis points, we're at 2.25. Isn't that where they peaked back in 2018 when they had to stop then because the high yield bond market was freezing up? All the gears of the bond market were freezing up back in 2018 at that same level. So we're just one rate hike away from that same level in 2018 when everything blew up, right?
Yeah, we're already there. It could happen anytime now. The question is what's going to be the first domino to topple over, and it could really be anything. I'm looking at Japan now, and we see a war going on in their bond market of the Bank of Japan trying to push their rates down to 25 basis points, and then all of a sudden they spike up to like 45 for 10 minutes and then smush down again. And the Bank of Japan has to print like $1 trillion yen over the weekend. I mean, this is
the yen is totally falling apart. The yen is completely falling apart. But back to our system, what do you think happens? I mean, we're just totally speculating. If it gets there and the bond market freezes up, the Fed has this mandate to fight inflation, and they're talking so tough about fighting inflation. Do they ignore it and just keep raising in spite of the economic chaos that's happening? Or are they sensitive to the political pain of the unemployment rate going up or the housing market completely freezing up and no mortgages being approved? I mean, is there a point where the Fed just has to, I hate to use the word because it's so overused, but pause or pivot?
Look, I remember 2008, and that's before I understood anything that was going on. All I remember was that everyone was freaking out. The entire country was freaking out. Wall Street, if you watch The Big Short, genuinely thought that the world was ending. And all of that stuff is going to happen again, except it's going to be like
3 times
order
worse.
Of magnitude worse.
3 times
so
worse.
in that environment, do I think that any of them are going to be able to sleep a wink? Or, maybe there's going to be assassination attempts, God forbid. I don't want anyone to get, but it's going to be really bad. And so we're talking about a pivot, use all these keywords. Nobody is ready for anything that is about to happen. It's going to be historic in human history. And we always try to like look into the immediate past and then extrapolate. I don't think any of us have any clue.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think the Fed is going to print like never before. It's going to be much worse. I mean, this is exactly what happened in Weimar. You could say, well, why didn't the Bank of Germany or whatever they were called, the Reichsbank,
Yeah.
Why didn't they just stop printing money? Yeah, because if they would, then all their banks would collapse and they'd have, a hyper deflationary depression instead of a hyperinflationary explosion. But it's all the same thing.
Mhm.
It just depends how you count numbers. I mean, in any scenario, the prices of everything collapse in gold and silver terms. That's what happens.
So obviously, we're Wall Street Silver. We care about silver and to a lesser extent gold. If you look back at the 2008 parallel, they sold off also when the shit hit the fan and everyone's getting margin calls. The good got sold off with the bad. Gold and silver collapsed also, but then they were the first to rise. Do we just have to sit through it, you think, and write it out?
First of all, yeah, that might happen. But if you look back at 2008, right? So gold and silver especially, it fell for what was it, like 3-4 months, something like that.
Yeah,
I think from March to October 2008, and then it was over. So that was like March the 3rd to October, like about 6 months maybe. Okay, but then in the 2020 crash, gold and silver, especially silver, collapsed for about 2-3 weeks. So that's already much shorter because they have their hands on the spigots already. In 2008, they didn't have their hands on the monetary spigots. They had to cook up a plan on how to do it. But in 2020, they already had their hands on it. All they had to do was twist their wrists, and it was on.
Right.
So, but now it's all they have to do is like push a single button, and all of a sudden the monetary system is going to blow up in a whole bunch of trillions of dollars. They already know exactly how to do it. They've done it twice before. So but let's be more exact. The prices of gold and silver didn't fall in 2008. They didn't fall in 2020. The spot price, the paper price for leveraged futures traders fell, but premiums for physical gold and silver skyrocketed to all-time records. So that means that the prices of physical silver, either they fell very, very slightly or they were completely stable.
Yeah.
While the prices of everything else was falling. The spot price could fall for maybe a day or 2 or 3 in the next financial calamity. But yeah, if you have to be ready for that, not panic and not want to push the sell button yourself. So you've got to have some cash to be able to buy that dip. But it might not happen because I don't really know. I can't say 100% that when everybody recognizes what's going on, that they're going to sell gold and silver, or that the demand that the need to sell because of margin calls won't be completely balanced by panic on the other side. I don't know.
Well, I could see it. Everyone knows the history of what happened in 2008. When the panic happened, it was obvious. Silver and gold were the first to recover and went on to, an incredible run. Gold went from 800 to 1900. Silver went from, 10 to 50 over the next 2 or 3 years after that. And people knowing that, you're almost expecting, if it happened again, it's like people would be immediately responding like, this is it. This is the time to go get them because they're about to take off. So you might not see that same collapse because people are looking for it to buy that dip in that type of chaotic situation. I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm just dreaming that we're not going to have the collapse.
Let me just answer that comment for a second. Like 20, 30 years from now, when we're all old men discussing this era of monetary history, having, beer somewhere.
From your private island in the Mediterranean. Yeah. Okay.
Wherever it might be. When we're discussing this and we're going to go back to these days and like, remember when it almost happened? We were discussing whether for 2 or 3 days or maybe a week, silver would like go to $10 and we'd all freak out and would we be able to handle it? Maybe not. We were going to have strokes. And then like, where was that on the graph? Well, how much do we have to zoom in? Where was that day? Oh, that's it. I can't even like that. That's what that's going to be like.
When silver's trading at 3,000 and or if we're even talking about it in dollar terms still, right? 30 years from now. I don't know. The next currency they're probably going to call the dollar still. So we'll see. But it might not be the same dollar we're using right now. We'll see.
Rafi, are all these crises happening in the world? Are they leading to a global reset? And if so, will people just blindly accept a CBDC, a central bank digital currency?
Well, there will be a reset. There is always a reset. The Bible teaches, in my perspective, that the world has to reset every 50 years or so. You need a debt reset because debts can't keep accumulating. So yeah, there will be a reset. The only question is on whose terms will the reset be? Now, the pessimists will say that the reset will be on the elitist terms and they'll control everything and they'll have all the power and we'll be slaves forever and, you know, cry in their beds and then the world is over and why am I living and what good is tomorrow? I'm not a pessimist in that way. It's not possible because you can't keep stealing and expect that there will be stuff left to steal. Eventually everything goes away and then all their power collapses. So the core of their power, the elites or whoever we call they, and there's a lot of different theys. They're just like warring theys. And now the popular one is the World Economic Forum, but there are other ones that people don't talk about less. There's the Bank of International Settlements. There's the IMF. They're all the same players in the same stage, you know, vying for position right now. So the core of their power is their ability to inflate the monetary system. But hyperinflations cure that because hyperinflation is a counterattack in the opposite direction. It's the people saying, we're not taking your stuff anymore. It's worth nothing. And once that happens, you can't build value on top of a hyperinflated currency. You need a basis on which to, you know, stack your value again because the pyramid is gone.
Right.
So, you know, will they accept central bank digital currencies? There's no difference between central bank digital currencies and the currencies they have now because the CBDCs will be built upon the existing value of the current fiat currencies, which are already hyperinflating. So once they lose that, they lose everything. And once they lose everything, we can reset on our own terms. As the public, are we going to be organized enough to do it on an equitable, you know, stable basis? That's why groups like you exist. That's why people like me exist. That's why the gold and silver community communicates with each other because we all understand this is going to happen. And when it does, we're going to be in charge because we're going to have the money. I mean, the real money. Are we going to have enough of it? Are we going to be able to organize and you know, figure out how to rebuild society? I hope so. I mean, that's what we're trying to do.
Yeah, what you said about the central bank digital currencies, it almost doesn't matter what they do. They're not going to limit the number of units that they have the ability. They're never going to self-limit the cap on the number of units. There's never going to be a cap on the number of dollars or the number of CBDC euros in any design. So they're not really fixing the problem no matter what when they do this, correct? It's just a different flavor of the same crap.
Well, I think you have to put yourself in their heads, and I can do it for like a second before I get so disgusted with it that I like eject from it again. But like in their heads, they're so turned on by the prospect of complete and total power and control that they cannot see the flaws and that it is impossible. So they think CBDC, how will that be good for me, the power-hungry, crazy madman? Oh, I'll be able to see every single transaction of every single thing that anybody does ever for however long it'll last, maybe a few months, maybe even less, before hyperinflation destroys it all. They'll get their final thrill before they're all shuttled off to Epstein Island for the rest of their lives and barricaded in.
You know, Rafi, I always love your sunny and optimistic outlook for the financial system. You're always a pleasure and a joy to talk to. And we're definitely going to have you back in the future, man.
Well, yeah, I am sunny and optimistic. It's just we have a lot of crap to get through first, and we got to focus on that. We'll get through it, and then we can deal with the sunny, optimistic stuff. But
yeah, we'll get back on a sound monetary standard, maybe a gold standard again. I'm sure they'll all come over to our side of how we view things, and everything's going to be perfect after that, right?
Sarcasm is where people say the opposite of what they mean.